Welcome to the Longest Turn Board Gaming Podcast. This is episode 26, Top 30 Countdown, Part 1. My name is Tyler.
Hello, this is Kevin.
This is Tyson.
Over the next 3 episodes, we're going to do our top 30. We're going to do 10 games per episode. This first episode, Part 1, Countdown, is going to be number 30 through number 21.
This was an interesting one to prepare for because normally we're preparing top 5 lists and we're only doing 5. We did 30 and we had to do all of those ahead of time. I love that we have Pub Meeple. That's been super helpful for something like this, but I'm excited to talk about our top 30.
Yeah, it was fun to put the list together.
It was fun.
I mean, we love lists here, right?
Yeah.
And it's cool to see where everything fell, to see maybe what was just missed the cut too, and then be surprised by that.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of a fun exercise for me to put together.
I love spreadsheets, which is really just lots of lists next to each other.
Right? You are a spreadsheet guy.
So, yeah, but with how much we've used Pub Meeple, their ranking system over the last few years with ranking games for Cabin Con and trying to figure out which games we're taking, and then just odds and ends. Hey, what are we playing tonight? Hey, let's do a ranker real quick. And then now our top 30. And I've used it for other stuff. I feel like I should be donating to them.
I know. I thought the same thing.
Yeah, we should throw them a little bit for sure.
They do a great job and it makes it really nice. I know that on social media as well, you see oftentimes people will do their top 9 kind of collage. They have that little feature and that's fun to see too. So they do, whoever came up with it, I think it was a good little tool for people in the board gaming world to experience, similar to BG Stats.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. That guy was, what he did, that app is a gift to the board gaming community. And I think he makes pretty good money off of it too. But
yeah, it is the best, in my opinion, to track games.
Yep.
Right? I used to do it actually on the website on Board Game Geek. Not nearly as easy as it is on BG Stats, right? Plus, there's so much more functionality there. It's pretty cool.
BGG has come a long way since I started using BGG.
Yeah.
It's not great still, but it's at least kind of caught up to kind of future times a little bit.
yeah,
Well, a little bit.
I think it's funny. You Google on BGG sometimes how to do something on BGG.
Right.
And the examples or the forum that'll come up will have old pictures from old BGG. And it's like, well, this isn't going to be helpful.
Right. But as far as content goes, there's no better place than BGG.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's got everything there. It's just maybe user interface is a little outdated at times.
Yeah. But Tyler hit the nail on the head when he said to properly be able to use BGG, you have to Google the stuff for BGG.
How do I do this? How do I center a picture?
So if I go to the Google search engine and put BGG and then my question,
Yes.
then I get the answer I'm looking for because I couldn't find it on BGG.
Right.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
We digress.
Yes.
So we can all agree BGG is great, but you know what else is great?
Our top 30 through 21 games. Countdown.
Let's do it.
Kevin's going to start. Number 30.
All right. Squeaking in at number 30 for me is a deck building game called Legendary, a Marvel deck building game. So if you're a Marvel fan and if you like deck building, I mean, this is, I think, the game to get. There's other Marvel kind of deck builders out there a little bit, but this is the one that I've enjoyed the most. So just really brief, the way the game works, you have a group of 5 heroes, you have an evil mastermind, and this mastermind has a scheme that he's trying to accomplish. If he accomplishes that scheme, you lose. He has villains that come out through the sewers and they're trying to escape up through the city. If that villain's deck runs out, then you lose, or I think it may be a tie. If you successfully defeat the mastermind, there's 4 mastermind cards. If you successfully defeat the mastermind, then you win the game. What's cool is there's a ton of variability. It's a deck builder. You're getting combos together. It's just a great game. I played it a ton with my family. That's my number 30.
It sounds a lot like it could be the father of Marvel Champions.
Could be. I don't know. I think it's better than Marvel Champions, in my opinion, but...
I think I've played this one once and I don't remember it very well.
It made an impact on you, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not in my top 30.
I have the Big Trouble in Little China one, and I was trying to get it played before we recorded one night.
Yeah.
And I read all the rules, and then it didn't happen, and I haven't gone back to it yet, but I need to get it played. Mark gave that game to me like 5 years ago.
Yeah. What's weird about this game is it's published by Upper Deck.
Yep.
And I looked at Upper Deck. I'm like, huh? they make games, but it turned out to be a great game. One thing I would mention: never play with 5. It plays up to 5. I do not like it at 5, so I would say 3, max 4 if you're playing it.
Nice.
That's my number 30.
My number 30 is a game I think we all have enjoyed and talked about on this podcast before. It's Pulsar 2849, designed by Vladimir Suchy and published by Czech Games Edition. This is a dice drafting game that takes place in the year 2849, and humanity has harnessed the power of the pulsar. And so with that, your whole goal is to travel the stars and set up your pulsar gyroscopes, I think is what, gyrospheres, something like that.
Gyro-y.
Yeah,
Gyrodynes.
You have to set your gyrodynes up to, I guess, thematically harness the power of the pulsar and fuel civilization. This game has a kind of it's not pick up and deliver, but it's got this travel to different location mechanic that you unlock special things, you develop your tableau, you're kind
of staking your territory.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Claiming stars or something.
Planets. Yeah, you're flying.
There's a lot of different objectives. The thing that I really love about this game is that the variability, every game is going to be different because you're setting out different objectives every single time. And the actions that you're doing actually are going to have different impacts based on the game you're playing, which is really interesting to me.
The planets are set out in a different order every time, so that adds variability.
Yeah, this made it, like I said, this is my number 30, and it's
a little disrespectful that this is
think
so
it
low
deserts to
on your
be
list.
higher,
Yeah,
but I also...
Spoiler alert, this may be higher on other lists. I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe. We'll see. I like this game a lot. I'm not very good at this game, and I think the reason why it's here on 30 rather than higher up on my list is because I don't think I do very well when we play this game. I've always enjoyed playing it, but I think my score historically, I'm at the tail end of everybody every time. So maybe that has something to do with its placement, but this is got to be one of Vladimir Suchy's best games, if not the best game that I think played.
It's best game. And the dice drafting mechanic in it just blew my mind the first time we played. And every time I play after, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Yeah. So yeah, great.
You got to watch out for the guy that's buying the transmitters, though. You can't just let one person buy all the transmitters. Someone else has to step in and prevent the runaway. This is my favorite Vlad game. Are we going to see any more Vlad games on your list, Tyson?
No, I think this is the only one on there, actually. So yeah, no, that was my number 30, Pulsar 2849.
All right, so my number 30, this almost didn't make my list. I had it below 30. I felt like it deserved to be in that spot, though. It's a classic. It came out in 2000. It's Carcassonne. This was kind of one of the games that I played a ton right when I started to get back into gaming, I guess. It is a tile game where you draw tiles out of a bag and then you're playing one tile per turn on the table, and you're slowly together as a group building out this massive landmass that has cities and roads and cloisters and farms, and you're trying to score the most points, and you score features along the way. Farms you score at the end of the game.
If you can figure out how to score them. That seems to be the most complicated part of the game.
Because there have been multiple rule.
Are they 3 or are they 4?
Yes. I always preferred the 4 point.
I did too. Yeah.
But I love this game. It's a wonderful game. I have tons of expansions. I think I played like a 3-hour game that
put everything in there.
Yeah. I mean, just covered the whole table. Yeah. It was awesome. There are a lot of cool expansions and lots of terrible expansions.
Yeah.
But this is a great game designed by Klaus-Jürgen Wrede and published by Hans im Gluck.
It's a good one. I've been playing this one for years. I have the big box number 2 of Carcassonne.
Nice. I always avoided the big boxes because I had already bought some of the
you didn't
contents.
want to duplicate
I didn't want
right?
duplicates of some of the expansions, but I did my best to find like the Count and all the other little mini expansions that came out. I don't know. It's a great game, lots of fun. I don't know. I don't think this is actually in the rules, but you got to draw the tile at the end of your turn so that you know what you have to play when it comes around to your turn.
House rule?
House rule.
I don't support that.
Are you kidding me?
I don't think I've ever played that way. I don't think I have.
It slows down the game immensely if you have to wait until your turn to draw a tile. So that's how we've always played it. Carcassonne is awesome. It's a great game. My number 30.
It's a good one. My number 29 is a game we've talked about pretty recently on the podcast, and that is the Lord of the Rings, the card game. So this is designed by...
I thought I was going to say Journeys in Middle-earth.
Journeys in Middle... that one didn't make my list. But this one did. This one's designed by Nate French and published by Fantasy Flight Games. So if you're into games that just beat the snot out of you, then this is the one for you. It is a very difficult game set in the Lord of the Rings environment. It's a card game. It's cooperative. It is very thematic. So when you're playing it, you really feel like you're in Middle-earth, which is cool. Something this game does that maybe Journeys in Middle-earth doesn't quite do. At least we didn't experience it that way. So, just a little bit about how the game plays. You're going to build your deck before you play, right? And you're going to customize that deck, hopefully, to the scenario you're playing. The better you do that, the more successful you're going to be. And that's one of the things I really like about the game is you really have to focus on the deck building aspect of it. If you don't, then you're probably not going to win, right? So you have this encounter deck. You're going to flip over cards from the encounter deck. There's nasty things that happen. There's going to be orcs that come. They may not engage you right away. There's this threat area. You have a threat dial. If your threat dial gets to a certain limit, then you're going to die. If you successfully, do what the scenario requires by exploring through these cards, then you're gonna beat the scenario. So every scenario is different. That's one of the reasons why I love it. You play one scenario, it's completely different from the other scenario. That's also a little drawback to the game because it is a lot of upkeep, but the fact that there's so much variability is one of the reasons why I love it. So that's why it's comes in at number 29 for me. The Lord of the Rings.
So speaking of a thematic game, Lord of the Rings card game is one of the most thematic games. I would argue that my number 29 is one of the most thematic games. And I'm not even being facetious here. I think the Search for Planet X is a truly thematic game. This is a game, it's a deduction game in which you play as an astronomer who is an academic publishing research papers and trying to discover the location of planet X within our solar system. So there's the hypothesis that there is another planet as a part of our solar system, and your job is that you're trying to locate where it is. And I think the things that you do in this game are truly thematic. This is I love this game. I really enjoy it. And I know that it's not like the most thrilling theme, but to me, like the actions I'm doing are exciting and everything I'm doing is exciting. Tyler got this game for me for Christmas last year, and I'm so glad he did because this has a great solo experience. And I also think that the multiplayer version of this game is really good.
And the app's really well done.
App is amazingly well done. It helps expedite the process and keeps the mystery of what you're trying to deduce and ensures that you're not going to accidentally not have your answer at the end because it tracks everything in the background and it's really nice. Like I said, it's this deduction game that does a lot right. It's probably one of my most favorite, if not the favorite, deduction games that I've played.
So by your reaction, Tyler, This made your top 30, right?
No, I forgot this game was an option. It didn't show up in my ranker list.
Got it.
No, I enjoyed my play of it. I had complaints, and I think we talked about this in a previous episode many, many moons ago. Oh.
One of the first 10 episodes, I think.
Yeah.
Good one. Oh, okay.
I almost missed that one.
Yeah,
that was
I did
good.
miss it. It went right over my head.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. Kevin, you like deduction games, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll play a good social deduction game or just a deduction game, period.
Cryptid?
Cryptid did not make my top.
That was the reaction I was going for.
I mean,
okay, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about that game in particular, I'd rather get a root canal or something.
Oh my gosh.
I did not enjoy that play, but that's just me. It's not my type of game. So
my number 29 is Shadows over Camelot, which came out in 2005. It was published by Days of Wonder and designed by Bruno Cathala and Serge Laget. Laget? I don't know.
I always said it Leggett, but that is not right.
So this is a 3 to 7 player game where you are a knight of the round table, and you and your fellow knights will go around Camelot protecting, defending it through different mechanisms, some set collection, and different things. And you're also going on quests, like trying to obtain Excalibur, defeat the Black Knight, get the Holy Grail. There's some different things going on this board, but you might have a traitor amongst you. So your turns are really simple. There's some negotiation. My favorite part about this game, and the reason why it is on my list at number 29, is the speculation and the accusations of who's playing less optimally and who might be the traitor. And we've had some amazing games that have just been magical. I mean, would make Merlin proud. But
that was a stretch.
Not every game has turned out that way, and I think that's why it's not higher on my list, because you can have some duller games of this, but some games are just absolutely amazing. And the game where Ben was the traitor just comes to mind, because we were throwing accusations around at everyone else.
Nobody was accusing Ben.
And he tricked us into letting him get, was it Excalibur's armor or Excalibur?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
My problem with that game was that Ben was sitting right next to me. And I have this rule with games that have any social deduction kind of component to it, that don't take the word of somebody sitting next to you. Like, don't trust them. But
you trusted him.
I did. I confided in him. And
Ben is trustworthy, though.
He is, yeah. Luckily, I think we ended up defeating him just barely, but
which was an exciting finish.
It was.
It was
cool. Incredible. This is an amazing game. I don't have the expansion. Do you have it, Kevin?
I actually sold it.
You did. Yeah. I mean, it's a very well out of print.
Yeah.
You gave me a copy of this years ago, which was awesome, because even then it was out of print.
Yeah.
But I love this game. It's a lot of fun. It's really fun to try and figure out who the traitor is. And it's also fun when you're the traitor, trying to figure out ways to thwart the group.
And not be found.
Don't be
too obvious.
Yeah. And even when there isn't a traitor, I mean, there are still times in the game where it gets near to the end where you kind of have to sacrifice yourself at a certain point so that the group can win, right? Similar to Cthulhu Death May Die, there are some opportunities to take one for the team so that you can actually win.
We're not going to turn over one of the cards or place a siege engine. I'm just going to take a life point and kill myself.
Yeah.
But even
fall on my sword.
Way to go, Galad.
Even those decisions can be dull, though. Like it's requisite, but it's not like in Cthulhu Death May Die, there are times where you have to kill yourself and it's a spectacular death. In Shadows over Camelot.
You're on fire. You have 4 cultists and Cthulhu on
and
your
you're
tail.
cathartic right now. Laying with a bunch of other cultists that
you have a fear
dead.
of crowds and you're like going nuts. Yeah.
But no, like Shadows over Camelot, if you have to kill yourself, it's just like, okay, Well,
Yeah, I think it's
I'm stabbing myself through the heart.
I think it's been a little better than that, but maybe a little bit. I can see what you're saying.
I agree that there's a lot to love about this game, but there are some points of it that are not as great.
Yeah, and that's why it didn't move up higher in my list. That's my number 29, Shadows over Camelot.
All right, my 28 is a game designed by Matt Gertz and published by Rio Grande Games. And this is Concordia Venus. So this is a reprint of Concordia that came out years before in 2013. So this game, everybody has a hand of the same action cards, and you're playing those action cards to do various things. One of the action cards you have in your hand is pick up all of the action cards that you played, and that is a mechanic that I love in games. It's like similar to Century Spice Road, that mechanic. It makes for some interesting decisions. Am I going to play this action card that may not be great because I want one that I've already played, or do I pick up my whole hand of cards, right? Another cool thing about the game is that every card has an action on it, but it also has an end game scoring condition on it as well. So there's a list of cards that you can buy in a card row, and it makes for some very interesting decisions on, do I want to go for that action, or do I want to set myself up for end game scoring and buy this card that maybe I don't want the action as much, but it has this end game scoring condition on it that's going to benefit me. That's cool. It's got a big board that you play on, and the board is beautiful. It's got a bunch of expansions that switch it up. Some boards play better with smaller player counts. Others play better with larger player counts. You're moving your people and your boats, and you're building houses in different cities, trying to, strategically place yourself where you're going to get these resources that you want to get. It's a great game. It's one of those games that has a really easy rule set. It's super simple to play, super simple to teach, but it has a lot of strategic depth to it. And that's those types of games I just gravitate towards, and I think are a lot of fun. So that's Concordia.
This is one that I knew would be on your list. That's not on my list.
Well, I knew it wasn't going to be on your list. It's not your favorite.
Well, I had a bad first play.
Yeah.
Because I misunderstood a rule that you explained, and the whole game I thought I was going to get a bunch of points from some of my textiles or some of my goods or something.
Right.
And I didn't get to score those, and that was kind of deflating. I played again, and I had fun. There's an open market that you can get cards from.
Yep, there's a market
that I really liked.
The first card is it's free, and then they get progressively more expensive as you get further down.
It's one that I've played once with you, Kevin. I own a copy of Vanilla Concordia, and I haven't played it. It's one I want to play more.
How many games do you own that we don't know about, Tyson?
This is one that my wife bought for me.
Nice.
Actually, blind. She did her research, was like, oh, this sounds like a fun game. This sounds like something Tyson would like.
It's a good one. I haven't
played my copy.
Yeah, so yours is basic. So Venus adds a few things. It adds team play, which I haven't done before, which seems like it could be cool. And Tyler's giving a thumbs down. You don't want that?
No. Every time that it's come up that we might play it at 6 players with team play, I've been kind of like, oh.
Well, you don't like the game much anyway, so I could see why.
Yeah, I would go back to this happily and play this more.
I'm almost on the same page as Tyler in that when you add team play to a game, it feels like a cheap way to get a higher player count.
It feels tacked on.
Yes, it definitely feels tacked on most of the time. I don't know if that's
the case here. It very well could be. I haven't played it, but I like that it's an option anyway.
Yeah, no,
so
that's cool.
If everybody's jonesing to play Concordia and there's 6 players, hey, let's give the team play a chance.
But like Cerebria, I've never wanted to play that as a 2v2 team game. It just
2v2v2, right? You can do up to 6, right?
I think you can, yeah, but no, I want to play my own game.
But that's how it was designed, though.
Yeah, that one actually does sound interesting to me.
But I have a blast playing 1v1 in that game.
You want all the glory for yourself, don't you?
No. No, it's not about that, Kevin.
Oh, okay.
There's no glory in board games. I mean, come on.
Come on, you want the trophy, dang it. Well, that's my 28, Concordia Venus.
My number 28 is Tyler was just talking about a game with some social deduction elements to it. This is one of my favorite social deduction games. It's The Resistance, designed by Don Eskridge and published by Indie Board and Cards. I've played this game for years. I've talked about this already on the podcast a number of times. My copy is worn out, and that makes it problematic, but I really like my version of the game. There are multiple different versions of this game to include Avalon and Resistance without the plot thickens cards. This game, I think, was one of my early introductions into social deduction games as well as into board games. And so it's got a special place in my heart. Every time I've played with different groups of people and there's a new player added, people have tended to say the first rule of this game is don't trust Tyson. Whether or not I'm the spy or not, people don't like playing this game with me, so I don't get to play it very much anymore. But I love this game. I love the ability to look somebody in the face and tell them what they want to hear, and that be the thing that they end up trusting because it's the thing they want, and then it ends up being the thing that hurts them. And I love that about this game. It's
second guessing everything Tyson's ever told me.
Yeah, I was doing the same.
It's got so much psychological manipulation, and I went into psychology, which good thing I'm not a therapist because I'm not trying to manipulate people, I promise. But I like that about this game is the ability to have that social component to kind of socially construct the situation to your favor.
So Tyler's mentioned he'll never play Race for the Galaxy with me again.
Yep.
This is a game I'll never play with you, Tyson.
I second that.
Yeah, I don't know. It may not end well. Well, maybe. I guess I say never, but
well,
I have played it before, and it is a fun game.
We haven't played very many pure social deduction style games. Like obviously we've played Shadows over Camelot, but I don't think we've done very many like
Blood on the Clock Tower, but I wasn't part of that.
Oh yeah, we played Blood on the Clock Tower.
But
That's a good social
I was
deduction.
the narrator in that.
You were.
So I wasn't
You
even.
didn't get to lie to people's faces.
No, but
you had
you had the chance to do that a little bit. As the narrator.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can't think of any other social deduction games. They're not my favorite to play, so I don't have a whole lot in my collection. But
I like them. This one's a great one.
Good.
That's
deal.
my number 28, The Resistance.
So my number 28 is a game that came out in 2015, and it is designed by Antoine Bauza and Bruno Cathala. Hey, another Bruno Cathala game. So this game is in the family of the Seven Wonders games. It is the second one that ever came out, Seven Wonders Duel. And it is strictly a two-player game, one of two-player games on my list. This is my favorite of the trilogy of Seven Wonders games. I think this game is much better than the base game. It plays very quick. It has lots of similar mechanics. There's card drafting, but it's an open card draft. Instead of passing cards from player to player, you can build monuments to get one-time bonuses. You're acquiring resources and purchasing cards to lay down in front of you. And some of those cards work towards paying for other cards in the future, whether it's a resource card or it's a military card that if you have it, it's got a symbol and you can get another military card in the future for free that has that same symbol. So this is played over 3 ages, and each age has a different configuration where the cards are laid out and some of them are face down and some of them are face up, and they're overlapping. So as you draft cards, new cards become available, and you can kind of see what's ahead of you, and you're taking turns going back and forth with the other player. If you make it all the way to the end of the game and have drafted all the cards and nobody's won through a scientific victory or a military victory, then you count up your points from all your cards and your monuments, and whoever has the most wins. But where this is really exciting is when it comes down to someone, the other player, or you potentially getting a military victory. There's a tug of war type track where as you're trying to get the military token to the other side of the board, and the other player is trying to get it to your side of the board. If you're successful in getting it all the way over there, you win, which makes it really interesting because there are times where you go to draft a card and you might have 2 or 3 choices, and depending on which card you pick, something might come up that allows the other player to win or allows you to win. There are lots of interesting decisions. It plays really fast. This game's on Board Game Arena, and really, if you're playing it real time, you could play it in 15 minutes on Board Game Arena.
Yeah, if not quicker than that.
Yeah,
it's fast.
If you collect 6 different scientific symbols, you can get an engineering victory. So there's a couple ways to end the game early. Like I said, otherwise you tally up your points and whoever has the most wins. But
yeah, the fact that it's a drafting game for 2 players blows my mind, because typically that doesn't work with 2 players, right? You pass a group of cards to like the person you're playing with and just get them right back, right? But it's just genius to me that they developed a drafting game that works for 2 players and it works so well. I think Base 7 Wonders is fantastic, but I do like this one better.
Yeah,
than Base 7 Wonders.
It does blow away Architects.
I think you're both doing a severe disservice to Architects.
Get out of here.
I mean, that's not my favorite. I haven't played it enough to really say if it's a terrible game, but I wasn't blown away by my first play. That's for sure.
Or my second.
Yeah.
Or your second?
Or my third.
It's much more simplistic, that's for sure.
So that was my number 28, 7 Wonders Duel.
All right. So my number 27 is a game that came out in 2004. It is a classic, and that is Power Grid. This was designed by Friedemann Friese and was published by Rio Grande Games. So we've talked about Power Grid before. I love this game. It is one of the rare games that I think plays best at 6. I love it at 6. I also love it at lower player counts. I wouldn't do it at 2 or 3 because there's things in the game that require that are better with a higher player count. It's a tight economic game. There's a million different expansions for it. What I think my favorite part of the game is the resource management, right? Because you have the resource track at the bottom. Every map you play is a little bit different with the resources, but as you buy them, they get more expensive. It's supply and demand, right? If you are later in turn order, you will have to buy more expensive resources. Or I've been in games where you get completely shut out of resources, which is a terrible spot to be. So there's this kind of push and pull of, if you're in the lead, you're going to get the worst choice of both places on the board and resources. If you're in last place, you're going to get best choice, but you may not be able to catch up. So maybe being in the middle is the best place to be, right? So it has this natural catch-up mechanic in the game. There's auctions for power plants. There's all kinds of things in the game that are just super fun. We played it at Origins, big power grid. It was one of my favorite experiences at Origins. It was awesome.
It was like playing a pool table size game of
power grid,
which was really cool.
It was really cool. So I've loved this game forever. It's one of the first games that I bought getting back into board gaming, and that is Power Grid, my number 27.
My number 27 is one that's very familiar to us. We reviewed this one in episode 5. It's Railways of the World. We've talked about this multiple times since episode 5 as well. This game's on BGA. It's a great one to experience and get opportunity with. It plays well at different player counts, depending on the maps you have, and there's a lot of different maps in it. I like this game. I'm not going to go into this one in depth, given the fact that we've talked about it a lot. The one thing I will say is that it's 27. I like this game a lot. The reason I think it's at 27 is I've played it a lot. And so because I've played it a lot, I wonder if I'm just more excited about other games right now. And that's where it felt. I feel okay with it being at 27, but I also think that this game is a very good game that may deserve a better place than 27 on this list.
Yeah, it's a great game. It may appear later. Tune in to find out.
That's my number 27, Railways of the World.
All right, so my number 27 is at number 27 because it does not get a lot of love in this group and doesn't get played very often. So I think it's fallen a little bit. This is the cattle trade in the Midwest, 19th century. classic Great Western Trail, which came out in 2016, designed by Alexander Pfister.
You're calling it a classic, huh?
Dude, I mean, it's 8 years old. It's a classic at this point.
Classic in board game years, yeah.
Yeah. So in this game, you're constantly, it's a set collection, deck building game. Rondel, where you kind of move at your own pace towards Kansas City. When you get there, you try to sell off and transport your cattle as far as you can. A varying group of cattle that you're culling your herd to try and get the most valuable herd of cattle. So you're adding buildings to the map. On each turn, you can move 1 to 3 spaces. So someone might be moving to Kansas City really fast. They might get there twice before you get there once. You're moving at different pace, but really cool. There's different routes you can go. You're always moving towards Kansas City. But there's lots of interesting decisions. You can buy cowboys that help you be more efficient at gathering cattle or purchasing cattle. Engineers let you go further on the track, and then builders let you add more valuable buildings to the track, which also slow down other players' travel to Kansas City, which is an interesting aspect of the game. I just feel like this game does a really good job of making me feel like I'm a ranch hand that is in charge of a bunch of cattle. I love the deck building aspect of it, and I just think there's a lot to explore here that maybe this group should give it more of an opportunity.
I've played this game 3 times, and every time I've played this game, it's made me angry. Every time, I just don't like the game.
Don't listen to Tyson.
In fact, on this list, I put it on my pub rank meeple ranking system, and as soon as I did, I was like, "Why did I even put it?"
Did you delete it?
No, I didn't delete it. I left it there so that everything could beat it out. It was the very last thing on my list.
Man, that's rough. I really enjoy this game. The masses really enjoy this game.
I know that this is a me issue.
I don't follow the masses.
I don't always either. I mean,
right.
Just look at my movie critiques.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah, number 27, Great Western Trail, a beautiful Pfister game, which has new versions that I'm not going to be buying because they'll never get played because of this group.
I have no comments on this game. Moving on to number 26.
Whatever, Kevin.
My number 26 is a game designed by Antoine Bauza. It came out in 2010, and that is Seven Wonders. We have referenced this game already. Seven Wonders, it's not the first drafting game. I think it was the first drafting game that really made card drafting popular, right?
It's the simultaneous draft, right? That makes it awesome.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about the game. It plays up to 7, but the time to play the game does not change depending on the player count because everybody is drafting simultaneously. It has a bunch of expansions that have come out. My favorite being the first expansion, Leaders. I don't think I'd play without it. And I think introducing it to new players with the expansion isn't that big of a deal. It doesn't add a whole lot extra, but it adds a whole lot of new strategic depth to it. So you start out with a hand of cards. You draft one of those cards, you pass it around the table. Similar to Seven Wonders Duel, there are different types of cards. There's some that just give you victory points. There's some that you're trying to do set collection. And if you get a certain number of them, you get points. If you get different of the scientific cards, you get points. There's these yellow cards that give you bonuses or make it cheaper to buy resources from your neighbors. There's just resource cards that allow you to build, get cards out in front of you. What I love about the game is getting a hand of cards to start the round and that agonizing decision, because there's always going to be multiple cards that you want, and trying to decide, what am I going to draft? Also looking at your neighbor and what you're going to pass on to them, and seeing a card that they really need and trying to make that decision of, do I draft that card? Do I do a little bit of hate drafting? Do I stick to my strategy and draft the card that I know is going to benefit me? That decision is awesome. I love it.
It's similar to like Blood Rage drafting, right?
Yeah, sure.
It's the same exact draft almost.
Yeah, it's very similar. You don't want somebody to run away with the Loki strategy on Blood Rage, for example.
Right.
You don't want to give them that card. I love that about drafting games. I think Seven Wonders does it great, and that's why it makes it into my list at the number 26 spot.
My number 26 game is a game that is at number 26, and I'm not sure if my
How it
hype
got there?
Yeah, like part of it is I think I've got this hype and this anticipation for this game. I've played this game, but I haven't played it very much. It's 26. It's After the Empire, designed by Evan Halbert and Ryan Mauk, published by Grey Fox Games. Essentially what this game is it's a worker placement game with a resource management component, and to me, I feel like this is a tower defense game, but it's a competitive tower defense game. Each player has their own player board. They have their own keep that they have to take care of in the Middle Ages, essentially, before. So it's during the Middle Ages, and it's the period of feudalism, right after the fall of Rome, and you're trying to build up your own area. You've got your keep that you're creating, and the 3D components of this game are really great. And you start with wooden components or wooden structure, and then you increase it to like stone buildings, and you can upgrade your buildings and you can do different things. There's a lot of really interesting things about this game that I like. You can see what's going to happen. Similar to like Spirit Island, you can see the invaders that are going to be coming in the next round or two. So you're seeing what's about to happen, and you got all these different invading forces that are going to come try and take your land from you, and you've got to defend against them. They could be coming from the north, the west, the east, or the south, and you can see where they're coming from. So you're building up your fortifications in those areas, but there's also some random elements that come into play. So you have to equally be protecting your walls in different areas to make sure that you're going to survive and they don't get in and destroy everything that you've worked for. I like this game a lot. I think that there's a lot of potential for it. I'm excited because I haven't gotten my copy yet, and I just heard that they're finalizing the fulfillment of this Kickstarter, so I should be getting my copy here within the next month or so, I'm hoping, and I'm looking forward to playing this more.
I'm making a note. Tyson
Owns this game?
owns After the Empire. There we go. Got it.
Oh, good. Now you'll remember.
Yeah.
You played this on your work trip, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
I remember you talking about this one.
Yeah.
Minnesota.
Indeed. And I played it with my friend Ken, and he's got a lot of interesting games that I hadn't played before, and so he introduced me to a lot of different games. This was one of the ones that just really stood out to me. That's my number 26, After the Empire.
My number 26 is a 2018 Spiel des Jahres winner, Azul, designed by Michael Kiesling. This is one of two super abstract games on my top 30 list. Each round, a number of tiles of different colors are put out randomly on discs in the middle of the table. On your turn, you draft a tile from one of those discs, and whatever colors you don't take, they go to a center pile, and then you take the tile that you drafted and add it to your player board. And you fill in rows of 1, 2, 5. And at the end of the round, for each row that I've completed, I get to add a tile from that row to a 5x5 grid. So you're drafting tiles and then adding them to your player board. Eventually, someone will draw from the middle pile, and they take a boon / penalty, a point penalty, but then they get to go first in the next round if they're the first player to draft from the center. When you draft a color, let's say I draft a red tile. If there's 3 red tiles on a disc, I take all of that color. And the same goes for the center. If you draft from the center all of the black tile, you take all the black tiles. So sometimes that works in your favor. Sometimes it can burn you, because when you are forced to draft tiles that you cannot put in your rows, you have to put them in your like penalty row, and those count for negative points for that round. So at the end of the round, everybody scores their rows. You get points for tiles. You get more points for tiles that are adjacent to each other when you connect rows and columns of them. You're trying to fill in your 5x5 grid as much as possible. I love this game. It is so simple, and yet it has so many amazing decisions. There's hate drafting.
Oh, there's a lot of hate drafting.
But it doesn't feel
It's
malicious.
not bad, yeah.
No.
No.
Like it's just expected and understood that, hey, they're not going to let me have this amazing tile. This could completely finish that row or column. You get bonus points at the end of the game for completed rows and columns. And if you have all 5 of one color out there on your grid, definitely should have won the 2018 Spiel des Jahres, which it did. Very much warranted. I love this game. It is my number 26, Azul.
The hate drafting specifically, I think is the only game that I've experienced hate drafting where I can't help but feel like commend somebody on hate drafting against me. Like it's a commendable act that I was like, yep.
Yeah, well played.
Good job. That was what you were supposed to do.
I got stuck with 8 black tiles that I couldn't use. Yeah, nice. That's what I deserved.
That's a lot of negative points.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. They're just and the interesting decisions of if I really need these 2 colors, but if I go for this one, is this one going to make it back around to me? And if I go for that one, is the red one going to make it back around to me? Lots of cool decisions. Very simple, but just such a beautiful game.
And the more you play it, the more you see, right? So like you don't want to tie up certain rows for the next round because you're not going to have as many options. So, it's one of those games like I talked about before where it's super simple rule set, but the more you play it, the more you see strategic depth to it. So it's a great game.
It's awesome.
Well worth it. Your 26th spot.
Yeah, that's my number 26, Azul.
So my number 25 is a game designed by Andreas Stedding and published by Z-Man Games. And this game is Hansa Teutonica. I've talked about Hansa Teutonica quite a bit on this podcast already. This game wins the award for worst box design. It has just a terribly ugly box cover, which at this point, it's probably one of my favorite box covers because it is so ugly.
It was also a pretty lame big box.
Oh, yeah. That's another thing I was going to mention. They came out with I'm air quoting here, big box edition, which is pretty cool because they re-released all the maps that had been released before. What they didn't do, and I wish they would have, is maybe made the bits a little bit more deluxe for a big box edition. And maybe put it in a bigger box because everything's jammed in there pretty good.
You did get a score pad, though.
Yeah, I had all the content before. My box was pretty crushed, and it's a game that I was fortunate enough to get for free, so I wasn't complaining about the crushed box. But I wanted to get a new version that maybe didn't have a crushed box, and I was a little underwhelmed by the new version. But the way this game plays is you're trying to control offices, and the game ends when somebody gets 20 points or a certain number of offices are completed or there's these dinner plates that you can't put out onto the board, right? You're trying to control offices. You're claiming routes between offices. There's a little bit of take that in the game when you're bumping people off of spaces, but when you get bumped off of a space, you get a bonus. When you're bumping people off of a space, you get a penalty. So it's very interactive. It's just a really fun game. It's been on one of my favorite games for years. I won't go into exactly how it plays, but it's well deserving of my number 25 spot, and that's Hansa Teutonica.
It's a good game. I like it.
Yeah, you don't like it.
No, I do.
You like it?
I like it. It didn't make my top 30, but I am happy that they did a big box because it was out of print, and now I can own the game.
Right.
I've had really good plays of this game, and I've had really miserable plays.
It's one that I like. I've only played it a couple times, and I don't really know how I played. Like one of them, I won the game, and I was like, wait, how did I win this game? Like I won because nobody was paying attention to me. I was playing with both of you, and like it was my first game, so I think the two of you were not really paying attention to me, and then I was like, oh, well, I make this huge connection and I just scored a bunch of stuff and it was fun, but I need to play it more to know how I ultimately.
In that game, you scored 60 freaking points and Kevin was at 45 and I was at 36. Like you didn't just win, you blew us away.
Right, because I was completely ignored. That was the thing.
That's a problem. See, that's what I'm saying. That's a problem in this game, and it sounds like we didn't pay attention to you. Maybe because you're the new guy. We wanted you to have a good experience.
No, you guys it's already been apparent from this episode that you guys ignore me in my games sometimes.
So that's my 25, Hansa Teutonica.
So my number 25 is a game that we've talked a lot about. It was our feature review in episode 13. It's a game designed by Xavier Georget and published by Quind Games. It's Carnegie. I have a hard time saying it that way because we said Carnegie for so long.
I've said Carnegie my whole life.
I've said
Carnegie Hall.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Before this game, it was never Carnegie.
You know what? It's Carnegie.
Okay.
I think.
We're probably not, but we can go with that.
Yeah.
This is a game about the life of Andrew Carnegie, whatever we're saying, and his philanthropic, I don't know how to even...
dealings.
Yeah, it's his
after building his steel empire. Right.
Yeah. Right. He's amassed his wealth. Now he's this major philanthropist. This kind of highlights that kind of life cycle of his, and you're building up your own business, building steel, whatever, and then you're going about and basically donating everything at towards the end of the game to score lots of points. I'm not going to explain the game. If you want to know in detail what this game is about, go listen to episode 13. This is a great game. The fact that it's on BGA is a great opportunity for us to get to play it a lot. I like this game a lot. I think I like this game less than either Kevin or Tyler.
I'm a little surprised it's even on your top 30 with how much shade you've thrown at it in recent episodes.
There's been no shade. I've said consistently that this is a good game. I like it a lot, but it's not like I'm not as enthusiastic about the game as
multi-dimensional masterpiece.
Wow.
I'm expecting this to be your number one now after that comment.
It didn't make my top 30, so I mean, I like it.
What?
Yeah, I mean,
Was it not in your ranking list?
I gotta check here, but
that surprises me.
Where did it fall?
Yeah, that surprises me.
It made Tyson's list and not your list. I'm a little surprised, but
yeah, I gotta check to see where it fell. But yeah, it's not.
That surprises me.
It surprises me too.
Yeah, I'm surprised on both accounts. Yeah, it made your list and that it didn't make it.
Wow, it dropped away. It was number 59.
Holy cow! That's like down in.
Oh, we play a lot of games.
Dominion land for me. I mean,
okay. Here we go. All right.
I think this is a great game that you can play a lot of, that there's a lot to explore and go back to. I don't think it's nearly as replayable or variable. It's replayable, but it's not as variable as it seems to be. I think that you guys will argue against that.
I disagree, but we can move on.
But like, I don't think, and that's why I think it's right here on the list and not higher up for me. I like this game a lot. I like the choices. I love the production of this game. I think it's one of the finest Ian O'Toole art with all the components. It's one of the finest productions out there.
The Kickstarter version is pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome.
How nice it is, for sure. Have you opened yours yet, Tyler?
No. We played Kevin's copy and
all this praise and you haven't even opened your copy yet.
We have to always play new games here and try and talk about them.
So if you're looking for an in-shrink version of this game.
No, I'm keeping it. I just haven't found occasion to get it out yet. So
yeah, it's a great game. I mean, it's 59 on my list apparently. I'm not quite sure how it dropped that far.
Yeah,
because it's a great game. It really is.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's top 30 for me though.
This is a game that I love playing on BGA and on the table.
Yeah. I like it more on the table. Like
I do too.
When I opened up my copy and we played for the review, and it was a completely different experience for me on the table. And part of it was the amazing production value. But I just think I mean, games are better in person. That's just the way it is, I think.
But that action
99% of the
for
time.
the most part.
Yeah.
There's some that are better digitally, but yeah, almost always it's going to be a better experience on the table.
That action selection board specifically when it's on the table is just so much easier to interact with, I think, than on BGA. Like, it's so much easier to see the nuance of the decisions that other people are making, and I like it.
Are you playing on your 90s flip phone? Like,
Yep, basically.
I'm just kidding.
Well, another thing is you're taking turns right after each other when
Right.
you're playing in person. Like
Right.
on BGA, it's like, oh, a day later. Oh, okay, that's right. That's what I was going to do. That common problem with all digital games, but yes.
So that's my number 25, Carnegie.
My number 25 is Res Arcana, and this is a game that came out in 2019, designed by Thomas Lehman. It's the only game of Mr. Lehman's that's on my top 30 list. I'm pretty sure it's not the only one for Kevin.
Yeah, that's a travesty.
But I love this game. It's fallen. I think your comment, Tyson, earlier about Railways of the World and how it's kind of fallen because of how many times you've played it. I think that's kind of how I feel about Res Arcana. I've played this so much on Board Game Arena that it's dulled a little for me, but it's still an amazing game. It's still my number 25. You get to pick between two mages, each have different abilities. You have those abilities to use each round. You have 8 cards to start out the game, whether those were randomly selected or if you draft, which is the much better way to play it. And then you draw 3 cards and you're trying to use your resources to put those cards in front of you so that you can use their actions. You're buying monuments, places of power, trying to accumulate the most points as fast as possible. Once somebody gets to 10 points, whoever has the most points wins at the end of the round. I love games where players finish the rounds at different times and you have to pass at different times. This is one of those games. Just really cool synergies and different strategies to try and apply with different combinations of really beautifully well illustrated cards and really thought out. They're very unique from card to card. I mean, there's a little copies here and there where it changes the color slightly, but very unique abilities on cards. And some cards have more than one ability that you can use. Really tight game. 8 cards that you're playing with. You start out in your deck. You're drawing 1 each round. You have the ability to draw more in other ways, but that's your deck. And
yeah, when I first played this game, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I have 8 cards for the entire game.
Yeah.
And I draw 1 card. Like, this can't work. There's no way. But it works.
And it's one of those games where your first couple turns or first couple rounds, your turns are fairly short and quick. And then as you're adding more cards to your tableau space in front of you or whatever, you start being able to do 10 and 12 and 13 different actions.
You get your engine going and it's awesome.
It feels really good until somebody crazy
plays the Philosopher's Stone and buys 5 monuments and wins the game.
There are some cool strategies in this game. It's a lot of fun. We've had really epic finishes with it. It's just a great game.
It's a great drafting game, and it's a great engine building game. And like you both said, the fact that it is 8 cards is a feat. It's incredible. Amazing. Like it's hard to wrap your head around how cool that is that it can do that. I realized that this is one that for whatever reason didn't get entered into my Pub Maple ranking. So this didn't even get on there. I don't think this would have made my top 30 still, but this is a really good game.
Yeah, I think Tom Lehman, in my mind, is the king of engine builders, right? Most of his games have some form of engine building in them. He just does that so well. And he's been kind of perfecting that through the years. And I think it's just an amazing version of it. And I'm kind of in the minority, I think, as far as the draft goes. I love the draft. That's my preferred way to play. But I don't mind just getting a set of 8 cards and then figuring out what to do with those cards.
Yeah, and that's the way to play with new players. So I still play that way a lot. But
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's still really fun trying to figure out what do I do with these.
Yeah, it's like
and you get to see the 8 cards before you shuffle them and
Right.
and draw your
The
3.
last game we did that though, where it was a brand new game and that we didn't do the draft. I ended up with a bunch of garbage cards that didn't work together, and I finally got a way to get the engine rolling in the last round, and I got up to like 7 points, and Kevin had like 14 or something, and I was like, that's great.
Yeah. I mean, you can get a really bad draw, that's for sure. But when you get a hand of cards, you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. And then you figure out what to do with it. It's like, whoa, that was cool. You know?
Well, and then we played with John on BGA from
I still feel bad about that.
the discussion phase.
Yeah.
And it was his first play, I think. And Kevin, you had 3 or 4 dragons?
Yeah, I got dealt. And
That's the game I'm talking about.
And I had like the dragon tooth where I could get dragons out easy, right?
It's like, well, he's going to hate this game.
Oh, I know.
Because that's the main
take that.
take that mechanic in the game is when you play dragons that force other players to lose resources.
And if you know the game well, you can time the dragon attacks when they don't
take
have
all your gold like they did.
Yes,
exactly.
I've done that to you, Tyson. I love that.
I know. But when you played enough, you can recognize that. And it's really easy on BGA just to scroll through and say, okay, they don't have any life, which is the green resource. They're going to be forced to get rid of 4 of their resources, which they need to use for a place of power.
Yeah.
Like you play it enough and you recognize those things. So John, if you're listening, I hope you'd play a game with us again, because that may not have been the best.
Probably a bad first exposure.
Yeah,
to
best
that
experience
game.
for you there. But
so anyway, that was my number 25, Res Arcana.
So my number 24 is Race for the Galaxy. So this was designed by Tom Lehman. It was published by Rio Grande Games. So this in my mind is one of the best engine builders out there. It's a card game. You are building a tableau in front of you, and you're trying to build cards that are going to work off of each other and build an engine. So there's cards that produce goods. There's cards that consume goods. There's military cards where you can conquer planets via military, or you can do it peacefully to get them out in front of you. But the whole game is you're trying to get an engine built. You're trying to get a tableau of, I believe, 8 cards in front of you. Whoever does that first, it signals the end of the game, and you count up points. Or there's a shared resource pool, and you're trying to get, or a shared victory point pool, and you're trying to get victory points through trading goods. And as soon as that victory point pool is gone, then the game ends. So it's very much a race. You're trying to get cards out as quickly as possible, or you're trying to race to get this victory point pool gone. And then you count up the points at the end of the game. Whoever has the most points wins. This game is, I've been playing it for years. I have hundreds of plays on the app version. I've played it physically as well, but most of my plays are on the app. It's one of the first apps that I really played a lot of, and it just does it really well. It is unforgiving for new players if you're playing against players that have experience.
If you're playing against Kevin.
Yes. Well, yeah. If anybody who has experience and knows the cards, you're going to benefit if you know what cards are in the deck, right?
You know what was great about that experience? I got to play against Kevin, and he destroyed me. And then Dan and Spencer, who we met at Origins, came over and wanted to play that. And I got to play it again and got destroyed again. I was terrible at that game. And it was back-to-back experiences. That was rough.
It's unforgiving for new players. But if you get over that barrier of entry, and a lot of people complain about the iconography on the cards. What's good about this series of games is the iconography is similar across all the games. So if you've played another game in the race series, it's not going to be that hard to pick it up. But if you're brand new, it's a little bit much to figure out what all those icons mean, because there's not a lot of text to describe, especially in race, what those icons are on the cards. But if you get over that initial barrier of entry, you figure out the cards. I mean, it's a really satisfying experience if you can get that engine going and hopefully win.
Sadly, I'll never know. and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's not for everybody, but it is well deserving of my number 24 spot. That's Race for the Galaxy.
My number 24 is a game that we just talked about in our Halloween episode recently. It's Arkham Horror, the living card game. again, because we've just recently talked about it, I'm not going to go into depth, but I think that this is one of the best narrative games out there. And it has a great solo experience, and it's a great game to just play and kind of hone your deck and kind of custom build your decks and create a system that works. It's a phenomenal game. I love the evocative storytelling that goes on in this game, and I love the it pulls me in. Like, everything about this game, I'm in it, and I feel like I'm in the Arkham world, in the Lovecraft kind of world, and I love that about this game.
Yeah, I've talked about it before as well. It's I've only played it one time. It's tough to get to the table for me for some reason, but there's a lot to it, right? It's a Fantasy Flight game, and there's, as everybody knows, a lot of rules overhead for Fantasy Flight games. But if you get through those rules, I still remember that first game I played. It was amazing and thematic, and it's something I want to revisit again for sure.
Yeah, and I agree that basically with a Fantasy Flight game, especially of this variety, it's harder to get the table. Even though it is really well done for a solo play, it's just, you've got a lot to understand, check, and if you haven't played it recently, you're constantly looking at that rule book until you've kind of got everything down. The system's not too, like, the sequence of play is not too terribly hard, but at the same time, it is, okay, if X happens, then I must do Y and Z, and you have to follow that kind of flow chart. And that's a little bit difficult, but it's worth the endeavor, I think, to go and experience this one. That's my number 24, Arkham Horror, the living card game.
So my number 24 is a game that I talked about recently in our anniversary episode 23. It is Nova Luna. This is the other super abstract game on my list. It came out in 2019 and was designed by Uwe Rosenberg and Corne von Morsel. It is a tile drafting game where you're playing tiles of different colors adjacent to each other, trying to link them together and score them based on their color requirements that are on each tile. You're adding these tiles in front of you, and if you play a tile that has a circle with 4 red dots on it, and you play it adjacent to a red tile that's connected to 3 other red tiles, you fulfill those 4 red dots. You have 20 tokens. You cover up that circle with 4 red dots with one of your tokens. You've now scored that feature. You can't score it again, and you have 19 more tokens to get rid of before everybody else gets rid of their 20 tokens. I like the drafting in this game. Each tile has a number value associated with it, so tiles that are more rewarding or have more opportunities to score or are easier to score cost up to a value of 7, which if I draft that tile, I'm now going to go around the circle 7 spaces, and whoever is furthest back it's their turn next. So you might take lesser value tiles that allow you to take multiple tiles in a row before it's someone else's turn. I love the strategy in this game, much like I love Azul. It's very simple rule set, very easy. Theme is something about a new moon. I mean, I really pasted on there.
Yeah, who cares?
I love this game, though. It's been one of my favorite games of 2022.
Tobin
taught us this game at Origins. Ben was there playing with us. It was a lot of fun, and it's on BGA and Alpha. I absolutely love it. I've talked already too much about it, but it is my number 24, Nova Luna.
This is one of those games that, when you don't have the components in front of you, this is a completely abstract game, and it sounds like the weirdest, most boring thing if you can't see what's on the table and what's going on. But if you play this game, it is so, like, it's the strategies that unfold, the way it plays, it's just well worth the experience. And I think I've said this before. I didn't read the rules. Nobody taught me this game. I jumped right in and just started messing around. And it's a simple game that you can get without even having any real instruction. And it's like, oh, that's what that happens. And it's really cool.
I've probably played this game close to 50 times since I realized that it was in alpha on Board Game Arena. I play with my buddy Jason or Squai on our Discord channel. We have a game constantly going, and as soon as one finishes, we start another one, and it's been like that for weeks. And I love this game. I don't know, that's a good one.
It's a good one. I've had it for years. Well, since it came out, I didn't play it until Origins. Had you played it before? I played it one time, before that, and I liked it my first play, but it just didn't grab me enough to get me to play it again at that time until Tobin came around and we played it at Origins.
Yeah,
so it's been fun to get it back out and play again.
I liked it enough that as I said in our anniversary episode, I ordered it from Germany and got my copy that way. So
good game.
Yep. 24, Nova Luna.
All right, my 23 is a game designed by David Kickerell. I don't know if I pronounced that wrong, I'm sure. But it's published by Lucky Duck Games, and this is Chronicles of Crime. So Chronicles of Crime, you are trying to solve a mystery. The cool thing about this game, I think it's one of the best uses of an app in any game that I've played. So the way that it works is there are QR codes on all of the cards in the game, and you are going to scan that QR code depending on the situation. So there's certain items that you'll find, you're searching locations. The searching part of the game is pretty cool too, because you have whatever device you're using to play the game on. You'll find a location and then you can search that location. I have these like 3D glasses that we put on my phone. You look through those glasses and then you physically look around the room and you call out things that you see in the room. And then people are finding those items that you call out on these cards. Then you go to certain locations and you scan the QR code, go to that location. There's people at that location. You can interview those people by scanning the QR code again. You can ask them about certain items that you found at a crime scene, and they'll respond if they know something about that item. So you're piecing together as you're going around to these different locations what happened, and you're trying to solve the crime. Eventually, you'll get to the end. You'll be asked a number of questions to see how well you did. I've done pretty good on some of them. I've done horrible on others, but it's always a fun experience, especially when you get it right. Even if you get it wrong, it's a cool experience.
Yeah.
And it's brought us back for multiple. There's multiple expansions that have come out. I don't have all of them at this point, but the ones we've played have been pretty cool.
I haven't played through everything. We probably played through 30% of all the content that's available. This is one of those games that I see it on the shelf randomly when I'm walking past my games and I'm like, oh, we need to play Chronicles of Crime, but we don't ever get to play it. I do love that this is a game where if one person is kind of controlling the cards at a card table or whatever, your game table, everybody else can kind of be sitting on the couch and lazily playing, I guess. I like it because it's easy to get non-gamers to sit down and play with you. And they can be as involved in it as much as they want, or they can just be having kind of side conversations. It's a great game to get people involved in, different way to play some games than they're probably used to.
Yeah. For me, I do think it's can be more fun when everybody is engaged in the game, though, right?
Yeah. You know, my mother-in-law or father-in-law can be sitting on the other side of the couch and they don't care if they're the ones scanning the cards per se, right?
They can just yell out, "It's Professor Plum with a candlestick in the observatory." Yeah.
It's the stupid. Yeah. Yeah. It is cool that each time you do an action, whether you're scanning an item or scanning a card to talk to someone, it burns time.
Right.
And there's progression of time there, which makes it interesting.
Yep. Yeah. And when that time runs out, then that's when you have to try and solve the mystery. And if you've burned time doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing, you've followed a red herring somewhere, right? Then you're not going to do so good. So, so that one's my number 23. Chronicles of Crime.
So my number 23 is a game published by Eggertspiel, designed by Flaminia Brasini and Virginio Gigli. I'm sorry if I mispronounced any of those. This is the game called Coimbra or Coimbra. It is a game for 2 to 4 players in which you are drafting dice and using those dice as a worker placement. So this is a dice as a worker placement game, which I really love that type of mechanic in a game. And what you're doing is you're trying to use these dice. You can use them to recruit citizens. You can send them on expeditions, or send them to monasteries. This game also has, similar to like Orleans, the track, like a map on it that you can go around and you're trying to unlock the specific bonuses of those cities and on the grid. And then there's this synergy of all these different mechanisms that work together. It creates this really engaging experience that I really have always come to enjoy when I play this game. I've only played it a few times. There's a number of times that I've looked at this game at stores and thought I should buy that one. But I haven't pulled the trigger because I know, and I'm looking at it right now, that it sits on Tyler's shelf.
Of shame.
And it's never been played by this group. And so I just fear that if I purchase a copy, it's never going to get played. But I love this game, and I think it's one that has a lot of potential. The spiritual successor to this one is like Alma Mater, and I have heard that this Coimbra is better, and so I never even went into trying to get that one either. But this game, I think there's a lot of great variability in it. There's a lot to go back to. Every time I've played it, it's really interesting. They have this board where you don't have like tokens or things to keep track of your resources. Instead, you have a track where you can go up and down for all of your resources. And I thought it was a really, at the time, innovative way to keep track of all those resources and the way it worked. Yeah, this is a good game. I don't know what else to say about it. I think that it just needs to get played by this group so that you guys can experience why it belongs on your top 30 lists.
Let's do it.
Bought it for a reason. I just haven't found the time.
Yeah, it's not like we don't have a lot of other games to play either, but
right.
This is, I like this game a lot. That's Coimbra, my number 23.
My number 23 is sure to be on Kevin and Tyson's list higher up. It is the Quacks of Quedlinburg that came out in 2018. It is a bag building, push your luck game where you are a quack in the market of Quedlinburg and you are trying to build or make concoctions without exploding your pot by drawing ingredients out of a bag. If you draw too many of the white chips, then you will explode and your round is over. You will still get some benefits at the end of the round, but not as many as everybody else who didn't explode. So other players can stop when they choose to stop. And once everybody does that, there's lots of end of round things that happen very quickly, rewards and purchases and purchasing of new ingredients to add to your bag, which is the bag building aspect, obviously. I really love this game. It's played over 9 rounds. It can play really fast. Each color ingredient has up to 6 different abilities that are, you select one at random usually before the game starts for that color. And so it just mixes up the different aspect of the bag that you're trying to build. I love this game. I really enjoy it. I've talked about it before on the podcast. It was designed by Wolfgang Warsch, and it is just, it's a great game. It's not there's lots of randomness. It's not the greatest game ever, but I love it because it's a little bit heavier and it's easy to introduce to different players. I played this 44 times, and it is the game that I've probably introduced the most to non-gamer people. Out of all the games in my collection that have any strategy to them at all. So I really enjoy it. Quacks of Quedlinburg, my number 23.
I love bag building.
I do too.
And there happens to be a game that does it a lot better.
So much better.
There's something more recent that I think we'll talk about later. But, you know, Quacks is a good game. I don't think it's a bad game. It didn't make my top 30. I've just had some underwhelming plays. It's really deflating when you're in your last round and you just...
Yeah, bad luck and explode
you just
early.
Have terrible luck and you explode super early. You're like, you know, but that's just the nature of this game. It's just it's not my favorite.
I like a lot of what it's doing, and I actually think it's a very clever design. Like, I think it's done really well. And I agree with you, Tyler, that this has the potential to be able to be introduced to just about anybody and they can get involved. But yeah, that push your luck element of it, which I really think is clever and I enjoy. I just feel like the game is heavier altogether for that mechanic to be just completely random, and then your whole game is ruined by blowing up right at the end.
Which it happens, but I mean, like I said, I played 44 times. It's happened probably a handful of times to me. Really brutally, and that stinks.
I think it's,
but I've had so many other plays that are extremely fun. I get what, like,
I think it's
it is brutal if that
designed,
happens
like I said,
round.
but to me, it's just, it gives the illusion of having control that doesn't actually exist. And when the curtain is pulled back and you realize you don't have any control over any of what you thought, it's like, oh, well, that was not as exciting as it could have been. Like, but it can also be the exact opposite, where you're pushing your luck and you get just the right things, and then it's really exciting that, hey, I did, and I kept going. I went all the way around my board, and I got this really great payoff, and it can be fun.
What's awesome about push your luck games is you can have those epic experiences that you don't have in other games.
Well, it's like when you almost went to the top of Can't Stop in 3 columns in the same turn.
Right.
The whole way.
And then literally the last roll I died.
Yeah.
But it was one of those like stand-up moments. It was awesome. So this game, Quacks, I think, offers that experience for sure. And when it does work out, it is pretty cool.
The other counter I have to it, it's not like you're playing a 2 or 3 hour game. No. You're playing a 35, 45 minute game. And if the last round stinks and you get a bad draw, I mean, it happens, but it's not a 2 or 3 hour investment to do that. Get to that point.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
So that's my number 23, Quacks of Quedlinburg. It is clearly not on Tyson's or Kevin's lists.
Spoiler alert, my number 1.
Yeah, whatever.
All right, so my number 22 is a game designed by Hervé Marly, and there are a bunch of publishers mentioned on BGG. I don't know who published the English version of this game, but it is Skull. This is the best bluffing game that I have played. It is super simple to play. Everybody has 4, we're going to call them coasters because that's exactly what they look like. 3 of those coasters have a flower and 1 coaster has a skull. To start the round, everybody will place one of these coasters face down. Then the person who is starting the round has a choice. They either bid a number of, they bid from 1 to however many coasters have been placed, how many they think they can flip over before flipping over a skull, or they place a coaster on top of the one that they've already played. Then the decision goes to the person to the left. They have the same decision. Either they stop and start a bidding round, how many they think they can flip over, or they place another coaster. If somebody bids, they flip over. If you're successful in flipping over these coasters without flipping over a skull, then you win 1 round. If you win 2 rounds, then you win the game. So the game can be over really quick, or the game can go on for, 30, 45 minutes until everybody either you're the last one standing or somebody flips over too, right? What I love about this game is trying to get in other people's heads. That's really what the game is. Trying to figure out what other people are doing, trying to trick people. If you play a skull in front of you and you bid, but you bid not high enough where you're going to win the bid, but somebody else wins the bid, flips over your stack, and they flip over a skull. It's just the game's all about getting in other people's heads, and that's what I love about it. I played this game. It's one of my most played games. It's a great game for my family. We play this game over FaceTime with my brother-in-law. It works out really well. Well deserved of my number 22 spot.
You said that this was you said this was the best bluffing game for you, and I think that this is definitely one of the best bluffing games around. It is interesting to me at how lean of a design this is. Like, there is no fat on this design. This is like just purely a bluffing game, and it is really tight and really well done, and it makes it so simple and clever that it's fun to play with. And there's a lot of different things that you can do within the design space, which is in the heads of the players, like you were just saying, Kevin. And I think that that's where this game really shines, is you play this with a group of players, and if you know them or if you don't, you learn very quickly how people are starting to operate, and that's a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah, I always love playing this game. It's a lot of fun, especially to kick off the night or finish up a good game night. It's a great filler and really simple, really quick, lots of fun.
All right, so my number 22 is a game that we've had a lot of conversation about on this podcast, and not all of it favorable. But it is Lost Ruins of Arnak, designed by Elwin and Min and published by Czech Games Edition. This is a game that takes worker placement and deck building and puts them together and does it in a way that I think is really good. I've loved both of those mechanics a lot. I love deck building and I love worker placement. And up until this point, there wasn't a whole lot of that. And right at the time that this was released, we started to see that mechanic a lot more. I think that this game is simple and direct and easy to get played and has a lot of different strategies. When we first started playing this game, I remember thinking that there's a research track on this game, and the research track essentially is you can go up it, and if you get your pieces all the way to the top, it's worth a substantial amount of points. When I first started playing this game, I thought, oh, that's the dominant strategy. You run right up that track, you get there first, and you bring both of your little pieces up there, your magnifying glass and your book. You're going to win this game every time. And then I started getting murdered by Kevin because he would go for the Guardian strategy. And I was like, maybe this isn't as dominant a strategy as I thought. And I started trying to do that, or having some combination of some of these different strategies. And I started to realize that there's a lot to explore in this game, and there's a lot of ways that you can do different things. The fact that the board is double-sided and you can get different experience off of one side of the board or the other. There is a lot of variability in the different Guardian tiles that are put on the board. You've got a lot of different pieces and cards that come out that you can deck build with. I think the fact in this game that you have the deck building mechanic that you can slide your cards that you're acquiring under your deck, so you're not putting them in the discard and then shuffling them. You know your cards are going to come up at a sooner time than you would have to shuffle your deck. And so you can plan to get certain things or cull your deck in some ways.
The best is when you have no cards in your deck, you buy a card, and then you get to draw that card immediately. If you can work that out, you know exactly what it's going to be. It's awesome.
And when you sync that right with your strategy for your next play, that ends up being really well. I love games that have the play until you have to pass kind of a mechanic. And it feels really great to be able to play and other people start passing and you're like, I still have 3 or 4 more turns that I can go, and you see those synergies and the combos that you create that allow you to extend your turns and get more out of it, and it feels more efficient by doing that. I love that kind of efficiency engine that this game adds.
The combos are what I love in this game. When you see, okay, I had this Guardian come up and I can't defeat the Guardian, but then you see a chain of events that you can follow where I go here, I move up on the track, I get these coins, or I get these compasses. Then I can buy the artifact that gives me this, which then I can buy an assistant that I turn that gets this. And I got what I need. I can defeat this guardian. It's just that whole combo. And when you see that is just so satisfying, I think.
It's so rewarding to do that. I totally agree. This is a great game, and I know that there are other games out there that do similar things. I'd like to play more games like this, but I also think that this game does it really well and is super accessible. Not to mention that if you add the expansion in this, adds a whole new level of different experiences with asymmetry that you get to play, and I love that.
And a couple hours to the play.
You say a couple of hours, but it was the first time we had played it, and I it's like any new expansion that you put into a game, it's going to add a little bit.
It's a nice game. I think anybody who's listened to the podcast knows this is not in my top 30, and I'm glad that you guys both really enjoy it.
Kevin and I almost constantly have a game of this going.
We do.
It's a good one. I'll continue playing this one for a long time. That's my number 22, Lost Ruins of Arnak.
All right, so my number 22 has fallen. It used to be much higher in my top list, but it has fallen quite a bit. It is number 22, Tapestry. This used to be like borderline top 10 game for me. It's a civilization game, wink, wink. There are 4 tracks it's very simple rule set. The rules are 4 pages. That is something I love about it. It's a Stonemaier game. There's the exploration track, science track, technology track, and military track. Each track has 12 steps on them. Each step has its own unique reward, and some of them have bonus rewards that you have to pay for. They get more and more expensive as you go along on these tracks. You have a civilization that you start out the game with that has very balanced powers. No, not really. This game has
been rebalanced multiple times
and still feel completely imbalanced. You have a city map where you're adding landmarks that you get from going up on the tracks and reaching certain tiers faster than other players. You get to add those landmarks and cover up spaces on your city. You're also adding income buildings from tracks to your city mat as you advance on these tracks. And as you do that, you get more and more resources available to you when you take your income phase. So you take a bunch of actions, paying to go up on these tracks with the resources that you have. Eventually you have to do an income phase. There's technology cards, there's tapestry cards. This game has so much randomness in it. It's kind of ridiculous. This is really, truly a game that I play just to try and play against my previous scores. I'm not playing against the other people at the table or on BGA. I'm playing to see how well I can do with the faction that is given to me and just see what I can do with it. I have a lot of fun playing it, but we've talked about this. Like, you can play an awesome game and finish with like 180 points. And then you can play another awesome game where you score 340 points. There is a huge disparity in points from game to game and between players. So that's why I say I just really try and play it to have fun and compete against my own best scores with different factions.
Yeah, and that score difference isn't based on skill level necessarily. It's just based on what faction you get.
Yeah.
Obviously, your score's going to get better as you play more, right?
And the luck of the draw with the tapestry cards.
Yep.
You can get a tapestry card that might give you 1 or 2 resources during your income phase, or you can get one that lets you copy someone going up the track, or you choose every time they go up that track during that era, which is extremely powerful.
Yeah, or you can get additional civilization cards, right? Which some of those you get can give you nothing.
Yes.
And then some of them can give you a ton of points. Like, I've had games where I've gotten 4 different civilization mats, right? And I've scored a ton of points, or I get 4 and I get nothing.
Yeah.
You know, it's really random.
If we did this list in a year, I wouldn't be surprised if Tapestry falls completely off my top 30 because I enjoy it. I love playing it. I really enjoy adding in the expansions, which are not available on Board Game Arena, but it just, the imbalance and the randomness of the card draws. It's a very simple rule set to play this game, but I don't know. It's fallen.
It's not on my top 30 for those reasons. But at the same time, and we've talked about this before, every time I play it, I have fun.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm doing cool things.
Right.
It's a little discouraging when you get to the end of the game. You're doing cool things the whole game and your score sucks. But I still have a good time playing it. It's just, not quite at the top 30 level.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like the most competitive of games. Like when I'm playing it, like you're saying, Tyler, I agree. I'm not necessarily playing the people at the table or on BGA. I'm playing myself. The one time, and we've talked about this before, the one time that I really felt like it was this competition was when I came back and scored 100 points, and it ended up within a point difference of me and Kevin. And I felt like that was super exciting, and it felt like it was this competition, and it was just how we had done the this was early on in when we were playing it. So I felt like, oh, maybe this was, I used this faction efficiently, and I used it to the way it was supposed to play against this other faction, and that's how it was balanced. But it is so rare in this game to be able to come within that close of a point difference. It's rare to come in within like 40 points of everybody at the table. Which is interesting. I love this game. Recently, I just bought Tapestry dice, so I'm adding more stuff to this. I want to add more stuff because it's the expansions are really fun. I wish that we could play more of the arts and architecture expansion, which adds the whole different track, because that adds a new level of exploration in this game. I don't feel like there's a whole lot of exploration at this point with this game. I've played this game dozens of times. I think over somewhere close to 100 times at this point, and I'm pretty much sure I've seen everything and how it works pretty well. And it's always random, but I like it nonetheless.
Yeah, but the randomness is brutal. Like, you could be playing with someone who's going up the military track and they're just constantly conquering, and you haven't drawn a trap card that you can use to defend, and pretty soon you have just your starting spot, and that's deflating.
Nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about it. So, yeah, I love it. It's fun. I'm not expecting a photo finish, right? The scores can range from 130 to over 400 in any given game with the same skill level of players. It's kind of baffling.
It is baffling.
Why is this on my list?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. So this is my number 22 Tapestry.
So my 21 has already been mentioned, and that is Azul. And for similar reasons that Tyler had it as his 26, same reasons why I love the game. It's just a great tile drafting game that is more cutthroat than you would think from the get-go. It's just it's got a great mechanic of drafting dice or drafting tiles, and then the remainder go in the middle. It's just a wonderful game. Very deserving of my 21 spot, and that is Azul.
So my number 21, to round this all out, my top one of this group is a game that came out in 2017, published by Greater Than Games, and designed by R. Eric Roos. It is Spirit Island. Yes, this is a cooperative game, and yes, it is in my top 30. I like Spirit Island a lot because Spirit Island is in the same boat for me as like Pandemic in terms of cooperative games.
And you love Pandemic.
It is a pure strategic cooperative game. And oftentimes I don't love the pure strategic style of cooperative games because I feel like they're glorified solo games. You could play them solo and get the same experience out of playing them with multiple people. With Spirit Island, that's not the case because there's so much going on in this game that it is really difficult to manage multiple spirits on your own. Now, it's not impossible. I know a lot of people do actually play this game solo with multiple spirits, but essentially what this game is you are a spirit on this island that the indigenous peoples and the spirits have a kind of symbiotic relationship with one another. But there are colonists coming to clear out this whole island and kind of colonize it and industrialize it and use it for its resources. So you're trying to stop that from happening. Each player plays out a unique spirit with really cool different names. They each have unique powers. Each player has a fast abilities and slow abilities. So there's timing in this game that you have to manage. You have this area control. Sometimes your spirit is really good at handling certain types of terrains on the map, or sometimes they're not great at going outside the ocean because you have an ocean spirit. This game has a lot of variability and different things. There's stories and scenarios that you can play. There's a lot of content in this little box that you can get a ton of plays out of. I really like this game, and I think it's of the strategic cooperative games, it is my favorite of that genre. And I wish I could play this one more because I don't get to play this one nearly as often as I'd like. But that's my number 21, Spirit Island.
My number 21, I am pretty sure is a game neither of you have played. It is Tyrants of the Underdark. Am I right?
You're right.
That is correct. I would love to have played it at CabinCon, but we were playing Paris, I believe.
Yes, we were.
Yep.
So this is a game I've only gotten to the table 2 or 3 times, but it is a game worthy of my list. It is a deck builder area control game that takes place in the Forgotten Realms of Dungeons and Dragons in the Underdark, obviously from the name. It is based on the Drow from D&D. When I was in junior high and high school, I read all the 12 at the time available novels by R.A. Salvatore about Drizzt Do'Urden, and my brother read them, and we spent a lot of time talking about him, and he was just such an awesome character. So I was really excited to get this played a couple of years ago. I love this game. It is an area control game. We recently played Eschaton, and there are some similarities there. One thing that I think I like more about this game than Eschaton is that it is not as swingy as Eschaton is. I mean, in later rounds of the game of Eschaton, you can basically wipe someone off the map, and you cannot do that very easily in Tyrants of the Underdark. It has variable setup. You combine half decks, and those are the decks for the game. So some of the half decks are the Drow, the Dragons, Elemental, and Demons. There's some expansion ones. But basically, there's an open market. You're acquiring different cards. It's a deck builder. And there's 2 basic resources. There's influence and power. And influence is how you buy new cards from the market. And power, which you get on different cards, is used to place troops on the map in different caverns that are connected and expand your forces and assassinate enemy troops. So you're trying to control larger caverns and take over parts of the map. You get lots of points at the end of the game. You score a lot of points based off of the caverns that you control. You also cull your deck a little bit. You're like adding your cards to like this trusted ring, or I don't know what I can't remember what it's called. I apologize, but it's kind of like your ring of, I don't know, trust. And so when you add cards to this, these characters become more valuable for the end game scoring, but you're also culling your deck at the same time. Really awesome game. I would love to get this back to the table. I'd love to talk more about it and how it compares to Eschaton, maybe in the future if we talk about Eschaton a little bit more. But just a lot of fun. I've had a great time playing this game. I love the theme. I feel like I'm in Menzo Branson in the dark, fighting other drow. I don't know, just really cool cards, and takes me into that D&D world that I did enjoy reading R.A. Salvatore books. So Tyrants of the Underdark.
There have been multiple times where this has been on the table while I've been around, but for whatever reason, I don't get to participate in the game, and I've wanted to. This is after we played Eschaton, you had mentioned that you think there's a lot of similarities to it in different varying ways, but and we can talk about Eschaton at a later time, but I've played a lot of Eschaton and I really enjoyed it for those reasons that you've kind of highlighted as the good things about Eschaton, but then it takes it and does other things that are really good as well, which is exciting to me because I would love to play more. And obviously, we already mentioned in this episode, we love deck builders. And this is one I want to try.
Well, it's also one of those games where you don't want to appear the most powerful on the map early on in the game, because then you kind of put a target on the back of your head for everybody else to try and take you out. So you kind of try to, at least I think a good strategy is to try and build your deck and focus more on the cards you're buying versus how you're deploying and expanding early on. Maybe that's not the best strategy, but it's worked out pretty well in the games that I've played, or just kind of lie low a little bit until a certain point in the game, and then you just like start going full throttle, trying to take over as much of the map as you can. And I don't know, it's awesome. It's fun.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I'm the same boat as you, Tyson. It's been out multiple times, and I've seen it set up multiple times. I'm like, that looks awesome, but I haven't been able to play it. Yeah. And I enjoyed Eschaton, but I'm glad that it seems like this one does some things better than Eschaton, at least from what you've described, Tyler. So I'm looking forward to getting it to the table.
Cool. So that's my number 21 and finishes out my list of part 1 of our top 30, Tyrants of the Underdark.
We've talked about some pretty good games.
It's been fun.
Yeah,
it's been good to revisit some games. There's a couple of games where I've like, oh man, maybe that should have been a little higher. And I don't know.
Maybe some games like Great Western Trail that shouldn't have been on there.
Yeah. I mean,
or games like Res Arcana that I forgot entirely.
Oh yeah, you forgot all.
Well, I know for certain I left a game off that's higher up on your list that we haven't talked about yet, Tyson, and I know that would be in my top 30 . So
I do like seeing.
So some mistakes were made.
Yeah,
but that's
not
okay.
a perfect process.
That's okay.
Yeah, we'll get better. We'll get better at going forward. But I like seeing this list and comparing each of ours, because we all have different tastes in different ways, and we like a lot of the same things, but I like to see the differences as well. And it helps me understand more when we do stuff like this to what you guys are most interested in. And then it gets me excited about seeing stuff that I have that I'm like, oh, you might like that, but then it'll never get played. Cause I mean, then Tyler will just go buy it anyway and play it on his own.
Yeah.
I can promise you that I will never go buy Sidereal Confluence or what's the other, Adrenaline or Tainted Grail until I've played your copy.
Right.
Yeah, Tainted Grail. You should break that one out one time.
Yeah.
I think the thing is when we go to play at Tyson's house, he has his board game table out. He recently finished his basement in the past year or so, but you don't have your game shelves in the same space. And so it's hard.
We can't look at them.
Yeah, I don't know what's on your shelves.
I really
Tyson.
wish I could accommodate. I have tried to buy shelves multiple times. My wife hates
The
Kallax shelves. She does
but
not
those are
like
perfect.
the way they work. And that's what I said. And she also doesn't love the idea of having like open shelves. She wants like doors on them.
Oh, you got to see
so
your
that
games.
you can hide them.
You got to see that Ryla Rising statue that you're going to buy here.
Right?
Well, I'm excited for that. That's going to be on display in my game room.
No, my plan is to get shelves down in my basement at some point, but it's been a slow process. But maybe one day when you see what games I have, you'll actually realize I have games.
I have a prediction. Tyler's going to play Adrenaline, and it's top 10 game, and he's going to buy it. You're going to eat your words.
Yeah. Yep. Nope.
I'm not very confident in your predictive abilities at this point, Kevin.
Do you have Hyperborea?
I do.
Oh, see, I know what's in your collection. That's a bag builder, right?
It is a bag builder.
We need to play that.
I would like to play that.
Kevin didn't know you had that.
Kevin doesn't even know.
I'm the same boat you are. I don't know the games he has.
I know.
I mean, I could look up your BGG.
They're all there.
Collection. I'm sure they're there. Yeah. That's too much work, though. Just get your games out.
I'm working on it.
All right.
I am happy that, I have a toddler in my house and I have a teenager, and the toddler is, I would say, like 98% trained to not touch my games already. And that couldn't make me happier. Like, that's awesome. So I have plenty of Kallax shelves out, and I'm not worried about my games.
That's been another one of my wife's concerns, is that she's worried that my kids, my oldest is 5, and then I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and she's worried that somehow she'll be held responsible if they destroy some of the games. They know not to touch the games. They're pretty good at it. Though my 1-year-old does sleep in the same room as the games. But he's in a crib, so he can't get out, so it's fine.
For now.
This sounds dangerous.
I got to get it out there pretty soon, because we got to make a transition here in a little while.
Yeah.
Well, we know that this episode has been longer than usual. Our top lists are usually 5 each. We've gotten 30-ish games done in this episode. We're excited to do more.
So we've talked about our 21 through 30. So next episode, we'll talk about our 11 through 20 games of all time. So tune in for the second of 3 of our top 30.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Longest Turn Board Gaming Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you want more Longest Turn in your life, please check us out on Instagram. Also, be sure to check us out on Board Game Geek, where you can join our guild, Guild 3947, and check out our blog, where we post all our show notes and occasionally post more detailed reviews. If that's not enough for you, we have a Discord server. If you want to play a game with us on Board Game Arena, join our Board Game Arena group, The Longest Turn. Until next time, thanks for listening.
Tot ziens.
Goodbye.
See you later.
We're going to talk about part 1 of our top 30 count.
Top 30 games of all time.
Somebody else do this part. Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
Well said.
I'm going to change that. Somebody else do the dang transition. Well, even though Ethnos may not made your top 30.
Let's get to some other great games.
This is a dry draft cream. Yep.
Well said.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking of root canal. No, I'm just kidding.
Good transition.
If it was root, your next one.
That would have been
opportunity lost. Switch it. No, just do an audible. It's next.
No.
Okay.
That's my number. What are we on? 26. Yeah, thank you.
So anyway, that was my number 5. My number 25, Res Arcana.
Well, speaking of Tom Lehman, my number 4 is Race for the Galaxy.
24.
What did I say?
4. You did what he did.
Yeah.
Did you say?
29 or 20 through 29. No, where are we at? I don't even know.
21 through 30? 20 through 11.
37 through 18.
So part 2, our 20 through 11th game. 20th through 11th games.